Hey, thanks again for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. Maybe first, if I could ask, who filed the election complaint and just why you filed the election complaint.
Could I ask you one question first? Yeah, why do you conducting the interview? What's your intention?
So, that's a good question. Thank you for asking. I should have uh, explained that. I'm contributing to a larger project that my colleagues on the mainland are working on about election complaints or challenges that are being filed in other states across the country.
So Adam, basically, back to your original question. So I think we filed a complaint because we just wanted officials which are responsible for elections in Hawaii to follow the rules. We have evidence. We submitted the evidence. So we filed the report because we think that the mail-in type of election is very vulnerable to all sorts of fraud. That's all. I yield to Carl.
Okay, yeah. I've kind of been the lead researcher and stuff on all this stuff, and I've actually been studying it since February of this year. There's corruption here in our election system from start to finish. And then I started researching the mail-in ballot because this is the first all mail-in ballots for Hawaii. And I searched high and low for Act 136. Act 136 is the act that our House and Senate came together and passed to authorize all mail-in ballot voting. Well, it's 92 pages. I've read it several times. It's extremely difficult to read because over 50% of it is crossed out, marked out, underlined, moved and out of order, and it's a disaster. And they call that an act and a law. It's horrible. My problem with the signature verification card is they send it to houses anywhere. They don't see any ID. There's no security. There's no verification process whatsoever. So I could send you a card, you could sign it and send it back and get a ballot and sign the ballot and its signatures will match. But that doesn't mean you live here. That doesn't mean you're alive. So then, I didn't figure that out till after the primary, or when the primary ballots started coming out, and I started getting these reports of people that died, people that moved away 10 years ago and more, receiving ballots. So if you get the signature verification card in the mail before the ballots, you sign that, even though it's not yours, you send it back, then you sign the ballot when you get the ballot, and you vote on that ballot, vote on your ballot, vote on however many you get. I know people that got 8 or 10 ballots at that address. So you sign the signature verification card, which requires no ID and no authentication whatsoever. Of course, it's going to match the ballot because the same person signed it. Doesn't mean that's the person that the ballot's addressed to. So that's one way that the fraud is perpetrated. Well, I tried several barcode readers, and I have a friend that has a business, and he's got a really good barcode reader, and he couldn't read the barcodes either. They don't mean anything. But the barcodes on the envelope, boom, all of them picked it up. So the envelopes with your name, and they come up with your voter ID number and the whole 9 yards. But there's no way, if that ballot is not in that envelope, once it leaves that envelope, there's no way to tell where it came from. So there's no chain of custody, no paper trail as required by HRS statutes. So then I have another little piece of evidence, Hawaii Public Radio. They did a question August 11th on Hawaii Public Radio, Zoom meeting, and Scott Nagle was there. Catherine Cruz, I've known her, and she's kind of a friend of mine. She's used to be with KITV News, and Scott Nagle, kind of nonchalantly says, oh yeah, he knows that there's over 100,000 people, or is right around 100,000 people on their voter rolls with bad addresses or died or whatever. He knows that. So why are they still on their voter rolls? Why aren't they removed? He knows it. why isn't his job? He's violating so many
This complaint is very broad, and it seeks to invalidate the entire.
Absolutely, and that in HRS 174.5 it provides for that. If you cannot do a recount that's verifiable and justifiable, the judge can order a complete new election. It says it very clearly, and it must be done within 120 days. Where's your camera? I can't hear you.
She was asking if it's the best remedy to do this way. I could answer that, this is first time Hawaii decided to vote by mail.
Yes.
And this is also first time, we decided to complain about the violation of the law. So,
Yes.
it has definitely benefit for the future of elections in Hawaii. And, maybe because we didn't pay attention, there's a one party monopoly since 1954 in Hawaii. So obviously they got used to their absolute power. So, we can only assume they are absolutely corrupt. But at the same time, we are just looking at the law, trying to find their violation of the law. We have some evidence which we can, even make more rich by the permission to do the discovery. So I think it has definitely, it's the best remedy to kind of overhaul the whole system if we get the permission to do that. So we have to wait for the ruling of the Supreme Court, and then we will decide what to do next.
And if, being that this is the very first all mail-in ballot for Hawaii and any state, by the way, if we just let this go, all these violations, that sets a precedent. And if our case gets dismissed, that sets a precedent also that the laws don't matter. So why bother to do it? Why even do elections? I mean, why not just give everybody a piece of paper, write their name on it, and send it in? There's two categories: mail-in and walk-in, and that's it. There's no absentee. There's no separation. We don't know how many spoiled ballots there are. We don't even know how many ballots were sent out. We don't know how many ballots were printed. We don't know how many ballots were returned. We don't know anything.
You kind of in and out. Sometimes, we lose part of your word, but sometimes it's very clear.
And sometimes you're really clear. Our major concern as a group is, how can you certify an election and an office that violates the law?
One of the other things that the state is saying, the Attorney General's office is saying, is that the vote by mail law took effect in July 2019. Why didn't you challenge it then? Saying you had plenty of time to challenge it before the election.
Hardly anybody heard about it. The media never talked about it. Hardly anybody heard about it. And I wasn't running for mayor then, and I was being like I was the 31 years before.
I can confess that, as a member of the neighborhood board, we had officials presenting the law for us, for the neighborhood board. But, we were having the same discussion. I was asking question, how are you going to keep track of your own ballot? And they said, oh, there will be a barcode, there will be this and that. So we kind of, thought, again, uninformed at that time about the actual process, how it's going to go through. And, now we are finding all those violations. So like they were setting the public up, and obviously the whole media charade about the elections in Hawaii was that, look how many people are participating, how more convenient it is for people to vote as a mail-in. Again, inflating the numbers, but at the same time, we will go after how it's being counted also. But meantime, we saw so many law violations. So, we had some information, but, with, again, no experience in Hawaii. We never done it 100%. So we kind of, assume that we will have to let it go and learn from the experience. And this is the experience. It's horrible.
Yeah. What he's saying is there was people and there was questions that were involved, and I wasn't. But there were people that were involved, and they had these questions, And they said, well, this or that, they answered the questions. And until you actually do an election, you're not going to know if that's true or not. If you have the Act 136 as it's or so-called, page 61, about the middle of the page, where it says, if you become deceased or move to a different jurisdiction, like move away, that you shall be disqualified to vote in Hawaii. Makes sense, right? If you die or move away, well, that's crossed out. So that by them writing it and crossing it out on page 61, that means if you die, you still have the right to vote because it's not part of Act 136. And if you move away, you still have the right to vote. Look, stuff like this ever before in my life. But that's the thing about Supreme Court election challenges. It's a complaint, and you do not have to be an attorney. And Claire Connors doesn't understand that yet, I guess, because she keeps listing us all as pro se. None of us are pro se. We're citizens. All you have to be is a candidate or a registered voter in a group of 30 people or more.
Call them back. So, but I think I was saying that, well, you were asking what goes next, what happens next with this interview. I will be talking to my colleagues on the mainland who are working on a story about challenges in other states, and I'll be sharing the information that I got from you today with them, and then they'll be putting together a story about challenges more broadly.
I mean, really, the remedy is that if we tolerate something, we will empower that. So, it's the first time in Hawaii and it's first time challenged. And that's very important precedence for whatever the court ruling is in the end, we will learn all from it tremendously. So hopefully the whole nation will run because, if we don't have trust in election process here, that's it. We don't have to have a country. And that's all.
Yeah. And if the entire process would have been in adherence to the HRS statutes, it would have been a whole different story too. But when you violate a minimum of 10 statutes, how can you certify anything? Is our question. How could you possibly, and if there's no paper trail, how do you go back and audit it and correct it?
Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.